Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Good morning from behind enemy lines of blue state of New Mexico, where I have good news that I brought to you yesterday, but I'm going to reiterate it today. Senate Bill 171 basically was the mirror image of House Bill 101. Without one, you can't have the other, because once one bill passes one chamber, it has to pass the second. What House Bill 101 and Senate Bill 171 is the assault weapons and magazine ban in New Mexico, and it was tabled yesterday with a vote of 6-2, I believe, or 4-2, one of the two. I get two different votes mixed up because I've been watching multiple things in this session. What does that mean? Modern sporting rifles are at least safe for right now in New Mexico. That doesn't mean we've got 4 more years of our awesome governor to keep pounding away on the doors of that. What does that have to do with what I'm showing? So the U.S. Department, it really does have to boil down to this. Do you trust your government? I mean, seriously. After the last 3 years, and then this bombshell dropped, and I spoke about it briefly yesterday. The U.S. Department of Energy assesses COVID likely result from lab leak. Further U.S. intel divided over virus origin. What's funny about this is there was an interview with Tucker Carlson, again, very biased, but still, I like Tucker, so I've watched him too, where they actually came out and said that the FBI had investigated this and it came to the same conclusion. While the Department of Energy does not have the resources that the FBI does, the FBI definitely would be able to know for sure what is going on with this investigation. That is what the heartburn is for me with the FBI, because the FBI used to be the cream of the crop for criminal investigation. They've now been weaponized by the powers that be to go after anyone that dissents against the narrative. Now, the in the lower left, what I have got there is a picture. This is just part of societal decay, right? So this is in St. Louis. This is a still that I took from a video that's been floating around Twitter and the blogosphere and multiple news sites. This man on the left, again, in the yellow, with the yellow sleeves, takes about 30 seconds to load a firearm, get it ready to go in open ground, then walks up and shoots the gentleman sitting down on the curb. Both of these speak to societal decay to a level that we haven't seen in ages. One shows that there's no amount of trying to convince someone that bad people do bad things. And two, that this is happening routinely now. This isn't the only one. In Philadelphia, there was a woman that was raped on a train, and the passengers sat by and let it happen. Now, I've spoken about myself. I will go to jail. I will give up everything I have. I know, probably to my own detriment, to defend my people from this type of crap happening. And the government itself is kind of key to what's going on here. They're not paying attention to anything at all. They're allowing this stuff to keep happening, and no one cares. So why is that a thing? Well, I'll bring that up here in a second. Why is that a problem? Can you trust the government that is actually saying that COVID was bad, that there is absolutely no way that it could have came from a lab? Now, we've all had this and floating around in our back of our mind during the COVID trauma that we had to suffer. But the government definitely had more knowledge than what we know, which we always knew. They oppressed us. They scared everyone. They made the cult and the division in the United States worse than it ever has been. And the media was right along with them riding shotgun. Now you're seeing media websites like the New York Times, like CNN, Like this, by the way, this headline is from CNN, coming back and saying, no, we got this wrong, maybe. Or maybe this is how you take it in context. Or this is why it's racism. No, it's not. It's you guys lied. You got caught. Now it's time to pay the piper. And after 3 years, some feet need to be held to the fire and some prosecutions need to be held. In New Mexico, our governor, Dr. Scrace, they both need to be held account to this because they knew. They followed the party line, and it was all fake. It was all known. What I mean is there was no reason to lock down schools. There was no reason to make people lose their jobs. And it was all part of a party line. Why? What are they going for? What are they driving for? I'm not trying to be conspiracy-minded. I'm seriously thinking about this in terms of just an individual, you know? So, one of the cool things I wanted to talk about today, which is really cool in my opinion, is The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1. So why am I bringing up The Mandalorian here? Okay. In one of the episodes in Season 2, they had a school, Grieve Varga, Apollo Creed, a.k.a., you know, who he is. He's the guy that has started a school on Navarro. And this episode, Season 3, Episode 1, this is a group of pirates outside of that school threatening to go in there and start violence. Now, he shows up, but before he gets there, the droid has locked themselves, and there's some spoilers here, so I'm sorry, has locked themselves in such a way that they can't get past them. And, long story short, Grieve and the Mando take care of these pirates. Now, why do I bring this up on a gun podcast or a political, cultural podcast? Here's why. For years, people have advocated for single points of entry to schools. This droid, even though the leftist, as Disney is, and believe me, I'm not getting this through normal means, if you know what I mean, because I will not financially support Disney because of their politics. I will not support any organization anymore that hates me, or, you know, unless they're just willing to deal with money and not bring in their politics, I'm not willing to support them. So, here's why I think this is great. Colio Noir, I bring him up all the time, but he had brought this up, but he isn't the only one, having dealt with a school shooting. There are security analysts that will actually tell you the same thing. A single point of entry to a school is a marvelous thing so you can police what's coming in and out of your school. That doesn't mean that there's only one. It means that there's only one you have access to unless there's an emergency. So you have a single point of security. You have a single point that drive traffic there. That is a marvelous thing because the droid was able to defend themselves and their children and their students in this case in a single point to allow help to get there. But even in a galaxy far, far away, ran by leftist cultists, they realize it subconsciously that it takes armed dudes and security dudes to end a threat, and they have to work in conjunction. And nowhere, and I can say this firsthand, having worked in a K-12s to do this type of stuff, to talk to people like this stuff, to help develop plans like this stuff, there is nowhere in there that they're talking about armed people until they get to the cops. And the reason why that has to do with New Mexico and its stupid insurance thing, but it also has to do with the leftist culture that's infiltrated schools. And yes, it's there. There's an anti-gun culture there. There's an anti-American culture there. And it doesn't matter how many times you wave an American flag or whatever, you are not espousing the American cultural ideals or the American ideals when you start backing down from rights, period. Now, I don't believe students should be carrying guns, but I believe students are, or I did when I was working for schools, the most important resource that our country has. They're just as important as gold, silver, and that almighty dollar being passed around by Loomis when they come in and get cash to take to the banks. They're more precious than any of that, because that is our future, and how we raise them echoes through eternity. And if we're not willing to defend them one way or another, they end up having other issues, or they end up going away. And I don't mean in a good way. And the only way I know to fix that, and I have heartburn saying it, is a man with a gun or a woman with a gun that can defend the kid. Now, I say that because when I worked in K-12s, there are people that absolutely are complete and total morons. They're great at teaching, but they have no common sense. They have no self-awareness. They have no spatial awareness. And these are the type of people I don't want anywhere near a firearm, because if they had it, they are more likely to hurt other people. But there are plenty of people that could be trained to do it. There are plenty of people that probably do it because they're tired of being canned tunas where people can come after them. So, in a galaxy far, far away, even the leftist cult, the writers of this thing, of The Mandalorian, understand that guns are necessary to the state, to protecting everyone. And it isn't just who has them, because it seems like in the Star Wars universe, they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. Even in Star Trek, you can get access to a firearm or their equivalent of a firearm very easily. And yet it seems to be that even in the most modern times now, we don't understand that those chipping and whittling away of rights doesn't come back. We don't get those rights back. Any ground ceded here, there is no we won and lost something. When you lose a chunk of your rights, you lost way more than you're actually going to ever get back, because now our kids are going to have to deal with it. So in the fight for the 2A, where are our fights now? They're now at the national level. The pistol brace ban has to go away. I'm a big fan of saying the ATF is going to go away, but I don't see that as ever going to be a thing, because once you have a government guerrilla, you're never going to get rid of it. I also think that we need to have like a commission with the FBI, the ATF, and all law enforcement agencies to where we actually check their bias, check their political bias. I don't believe field officers are necessarily the problem, but I do believe in something that was brought up by the owner of Phoenix Ammunition. These are the guys that told you if you voted for Biden, we don't need your business. He said that, and I agree with him, that there's a 80-20 rule, it seems, for law enforcement officials. And what happens with 80-20? 20% of them are legitimate, went in for the right reasons, and will not cross a line because that is antithetical to who they are. Then there's 80% that will follow the rules no matter what. The bootlickers that are working in these types of fields, that they're the ones that went ahead and helped the governor lock us down. And every law enforcement agency and every government agency has this problem, that there's 20% probably good, 80% corrupt. So to me, 80% is more than 20. That's more than that's a B passing grade. That means they're all corrupt. That means they all need to go away. And if you haven't seen it, I won't show you anything about this, but I'll talk about it. There's a video going around on Twitter, on multiple social media sites, where Zelensky's saying, and it's taken out of context, what we should do. There will be a time that American sons and daughters will have to fight for Ukraine in another way, a roundabout way of what he's saying. Now, what he was saying in this was that he was talking about NATO. We would be fighting after Ukraine was conquered, and that we would have to go because of the NATO treaties. Well, I have two things to say to that. No, I don't care. I really don't. There is absolutely, after 20 years of us prosecuting a war on terror that has done more to disrupt the global order and the global good, I'm okay with the U.S. taking its crowns and going home. We have no business, zero business, imposing our will on anyone right now. After seeing Zelensky's video, even though it's a little out of context, it gives me great pause into ever funding him and ever allowing that man anywhere near American anything. And I'm actually a little more pro-Russian now than I was before because of that. I personally think that we cannot prosecute a war against Russia. If you don't know what prosecute, we can't engage in combat. We've been selling arms to them, so technically we already are. But we cannot come into direct conflict with Russia. And if we do, we've seen how the Russians are prosecuting a war. Their casualties will be 10 to 1. We will kill 10 of them for every one of them we lose. Guaranteed. They have absolutely no way to fight us in a way that they would win. So what would that do? That would make them very desperate. And then they would go for the nuke option. Now, I have some friends who are very black-pilled who think that the nuclear war is inevitable. But I would ask, what would the Russians get or the Chinese get from nuking anything? The rest of the global community would make them even more a pariah and would not trade or sell or do anything with them. While Russia can absorb a lot of that themselves, they still need outside inputs from us to make their life even possible. So imagine a place where you've used said device and everyone just turns their back on you and says, no, we're not taking your oil, we're not taking your gas, we're not taking your wheat, we're not taking anything from you. You live, you twist in the wind. In today's society, how long do you think that would last? How long do you think the Russians would last? Now, American society, to be honest, has been pussified for a long time. And we're seeing the growing pains of us stopping that pussification. And we're seeing the cultural degradation that's forcing us to get there. But for all the black pills that are going on right now, we need to start looking at the good things that are still happening. Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, the one that said, if you do not get the vax, you cannot participate in modern life. She was voted out yesterday. There are senators in Texas and reps in Texas that are passing a state bill to be handed to the ATF, talking about how unfortunate boating accidents keep happening and that firearms in Texas are have gone missing and there's nothing they can do about it, so stay away. We have senators introducing bills nationally, I believe, to protect the AR-15. We have more and more examples of cultural icons coming out and saying enough's enough. They canceled Scott Adams, if you didn't know that. He's the owner, or the guy that created Dilbert. Now, it's an old cartoon, and I could really care less about the politics around the situation. But he came out as a little bit racist there, and I say a little bit. I don't know how to take what he said, to be honest, because he was actually talking to Maj Touré. If you don't know who Maj Touré is, check him out. Black Guns Matter. He's the founder and CEO. He's the guy that he was having the conversation with. So I think before I make any judgments on Scott Adams' decisions and what he said and his cancellation, I want to watch that interview with Maj, because I think I want to see for myself. And that's where we are at in today's society, is you see people like me that just said, I want to see it myself before I call it. Then you have other people like, oh no, he's an outright racist, we should cancel him. Well, where's the proof? Where's the receipts? You know, I posted the Ukrainian video on my personal Facebook page. And I had a kid who I consider very dear to me because of his mom. And he came out and said, well, this is obviously fake satire. And I'm like, no, it's not. It may be pulled out of context, but this video sure the hell is to him talking about this. Well, this is what he means, and this will get us, Ukraine will be owing the United States for years past this. They'll never be able to pay us back. I don't really care. You cannot look at the pullout of Afghanistan, the end, our withdrawal, how we left, and how many people we left behind, and think that we should ever prosecute a war again until we have fixed our military, until we have fixed our leadership, and such time as to make sure that this is a lawfully just war, one that the American people see a reason for. And right now, cultists believe firmly that we should be headed to war in Ukraine. And I'm still of the volition of, what does Ukraine have on the United States? Because they seem to be getting whatever the hell they want, despite opposition in the United States. And there is no Ukraine, as far as I'm concerned, without us. And if they burn in hell because of their stupid ideas that they're trying to do, yes, they were attacked by the Russian Federation, and they have every right to defend themselves. But how dare you come to my country? How dare you say I owe you a damn thing as an American taxpayer or as an American? I owe you, nor anyone else in Europe, anything else. We are American by design. We have been forever. It is time we stick to our own borders and let everybody else sort their problems themselves. Like, share, subscribe, be great.